All right, well, welcome everyone. My name is Anna Krueger. And first of all, thank you guys for being here today. You have a lot of choices with how to spend your Tuesday afternoons, and you're here with me. So thank you for joining. And if you would go ahead in the chat box, tell us what you most want to learn about this topic today. And I'll keep my eye on that. And if I can customize it to what you've typed in, I'll do that. And let us also know where you're from in case we have a referral for you. So Emily and Franklin, I love Franklin. I would love to chat with you about that, but we have a webinar. So I'm going to get to the webinar. All right. So today we're going to talk about how do you create urgency to hire you before even meeting. So what we mean by that is in the real estate world, we have this thing called a buyer's agency agreement, right? Or a listing agreement. And you might call it something different depending on your location. But we're talking about that document that says, I'm hiring you and I will pay you when this home closes. We all want that, right? So today we're going to talk through how do you set it up so that they're expecting to hire you and you're creating urgency for that to happen so that they're walking into the meeting already thinking, yeah, of course, I'm going to hire her. I'm already ready. So grab your notes if you haven't already. I'm going to give you some dialogues to write down. By the way, yes, you could take a picture of this screen. However, you're going to learn a lot more if you actually write down the notes. And you only remember 8% of what you hear, which is kind of depressing as someone who speaks for a living to realize, if people aren't taking notes, I'm only having an 8% impact. That doesn't feel very good. So go ahead and make sure you're taking notes today. And I want to share with you a statistic that I think will encourage you. So when we actually hired someone to research what percentage of people hire you when they meet with you. Anybody have a guess what percentage is average? Maybe think of your own percentages. Go ahead and unmute yourself, or you could use a chat box. So what percentage of people do you think hire you when meeting with you?
80, 85.
80 to 85? Yep. A lot of people are typing in, I see a 30 and then a bunch of 85 to 90s. So Jade at 30 is actually the most accurate, believe it or not. So when we hired someone to do research, what we found is that 40% is the average number. And what that means is only 40% of people who meet with the average agent actually sign on the dotted line. So if the number you typed in is your actual percentage, great job. You are well above average. If you were guessing, just know that we're probably guessing positively because what we actually found through paid research is it's closer to 40%. So how many of you have had a business that has maybe gone down a little bit in the last year? You can reveal yourself by raising your hand if you want, or just think about that in your head. I know a lot of people in real estate have said, my business is struggling this year because of the market. And so what I hear a lot of people say is, I just need to talk to more people. I just need to talk to more people, which there is an element of that that may be true. You know, talking to more people should earn you more clients. But let's also think about it. If we're setting appointments anyway, what if we just talked to the same amount of people, but we simply had more of those people agree to work with us in the long run, right? If I actually had 90 to 95% of the people I'm already meeting with agree to hire me, then I don't need to talk to as many people. Are y'all tracking with me? And then, of course, if I talk to more people and I'm increasing the amount of people who hire me, that's just a win-win on both sides. So what we're going to do today is talk through how do you get a 90 to 95% signing ratio. So write a couple of these numbers down. 40% is the average. 80% is the average for people in coaching who are well scripted. So that would be maybe like a MAPS mastery client, somebody like that, where they're in coaching and they're very well, you know, they have their dialogues down. 80% is good for that. Using what I'm going to give you today, we're seeing 90 to 95%. So my numbers and then the people I've coached that I've seen, 90% of listings hire us, 95% of buyers hire us using this dialogue. So it's well above average, and it's even above average for people in coaching. So are you ready for me to tell you? You're probably like, okay, get on with it. Okay, so let me share with you what it is. So the first thing we're going to do today is talk about the dialogue to set the appointment so that there's urgency in how you're setting it. And then we're going to talk about what is a customer versus what is a client and how do you communicate that to the general public, and that will also create urgency. Then at the end of all that, I'll share with you where you can find more training like this, because we actually have a program starting tomorrow that has this times 18. So we have 18 sessions of how to convert leads. And this is just a small taste of what that is. And I'll explain that at the end of this session today. So the first thing you want to do is when you're setting appointments, you are going to set the appointment so that it is very clear exactly what's going to happen in the appointment. So when you set it up the way that I'm about to teach you, on average, we see 70% of appointments show up. Again, that number is closer to 40 with people not using this dialogue. So let me tell you real quick, we actually want 70 to 80% of our appointments showing up. We don't want 100. Does anybody want to guess why would we not want 100% of our appointments to show up? Some of you are looking at me like, why?
Because we cannot improve otherwise, because there's no space for improvement.
That's
or
an element of it.
You're not setting enough appointments.
You're not setting enough appointments. Exactly. Patricia, you've taken my class before. Good to see you. Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah. So here's a basketball analogy. Basketball is the best sport. I don't care what you say. I know there's a big Super Bowl game this weekend, but I'm telling you, basketball is the best sport. So if you know anything about basketball and you have followed it, you may know that Wilt Chamberlain he's not any longer, but he was a top NBA player. And the highest points he ever scored in a game was 100. Now think about that for just a minute. 100 points in one game by one player. Obviously, people were on the team were assisting him and getting the basketball to him. But 100 points in an NBA game is absolutely phenomenal, right? The person who's closest to him is Kobe Bryant, which unfortunately is no longer with us as well. But in his highest score, anybody know what his highest score was in an NBA game? 81, Derek, my fellow basketball fan. So Derek is right. 81 points is the highest that Kobe ever scored. Exactly. But here's the thing. If you actually put the two players beside each other, literally Kobe netted more baskets for every shot that he took. So he actually was a better player statistically. If he shot a basket, more of them went in. But the reason he is trailing Wilt is because he shot less. He took less attempts. And because he took less attempts, he literally netted less. Now, I'm not knocking 81 points in a game, right? Like, I'm lucky if I win the game of horse playing against a friend of mine on the basketball court. But the point I'm making is when you take more chances, you will net more clients. And so that's why if I'm coaching someone and they have 100% of the appointments they're setting show up, what that tells me is we're probably not setting enough appointments and we're not being risky enough. And if you were to set the one that you're like, ooh, I don't know, what if they show up and they hire you? That's an extra client that you wouldn't have had. Does that analogy make sense to everyone? Okay, awesome. I see a lot of heads nodding. So the point is we want to be a little risky. So that's why I say that what I'm about to show you helps have 70% of your appointments actually show up, which is right actually where we want to be. So when you're setting appointments, you're going to word it this way. And what this will do is tell them why are they meeting with you and then what's the expectation. And we're going to introduce the idea of hiring you. So we're assuming that we've already talked with a client. I've screened them and I know that they're qualified. This is someone that is probably going to move in the next 1 to 3 months, maybe up to 6. And they're going to hire an agent to work with them. And I want it to be me. So we've already had a phone conversation probably for about 10 minutes. And I'm now at the end about to set the appointment. So what I'm going to do is say your next step is to meet with me. Or if I'm setting for someone else, I might say your next step is to meet with Brian. And notice I'm not asking if they want to meet with me. I'm advising them. Your next step is to meet with me. Very direct. It makes it easy for them to then say yes. So I'm not saying, would you like to? It's just, hey, your next step is to meet with me. And I'm advising them in that direction. So your next step is to meet with me and do 3 things. Number 1, we're going to go back over your motivation and price. And if I'm talking to Ernie, I might say, you know, we're going to go back over your motivation and price. I know we've talked about that on the phone today. I just want to make sure nothing's changed. And then I'm definitely on the same page when we're in person. So we'll go back over your motivation and price. Number 2, we'll interview each other to make sure we are a mutually good fit. Somebody unmute yourself. Why would we say we're going to interview each other versus saying you're going to interview me? What's the value there?
Because we might don't want to work with them.
Yeah, they might not be the right fit for us. Maybe they're not qualified, or maybe they're unreasonable with their expectations. Ernie, I think you also said something.
Yeah, somebody else said, but you're setting up a partnership,
Yeah.
a one-on-one working together atmosphere.
Yeah, it's setting up a partnership. And it's creating that environment of this is professional and I'm not desperate, right? And the truth is, sometimes you might feel desperate if you haven't had a client in a while, but we're not going to make that obvious in the way that we communicate, because that actually drives people away. So number two, we're going to interview each other to make sure we are a mutually good fit. And then here's the big one. Number three, if everything looks good, we will sign paperwork to activate the next step. And that tonality with which I just said that is what you want to do. It's very calm and it doesn't sound like a question. I'm not saying, and then we'll sign paperwork. That actually takes away from your professionalism because you don't sound certain. So you're going to word it again. And then number three, if everything looks good, we will sign paperwork to activate the next step. And then lastly, you'll say any questions. And then the screen there, it says with a downswing, and it's that downward tone. So any questions? Okay, great. Let's pick a time. Now, I want to be clear about something real quick. And I'll put that back up in a minute if you're still writing. My goal in saying this on the phone is not to get their questions and then answer all of them, right? So if I'm talking to Laura and I say, any questions? And she's like, whoa, 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 I have a question. I don't sign papers when I meet with somebody. I'm not going to try to fix that right now. That's much easier to deal with in person. All that I'm attempting to do is figure out what might her objections be. So if Laura says, okay, sounds great, I know that she likely will be an easier client. She's not resisting. She doesn't have any questions at this moment. That's a good sign. But if she says, ooh, I'm the kind of person I always like to think it over. Well, that's good for me to know. Maybe in the appointment, I will leave to make a phone call to give her a moment to think it over by herself. A lot of times that's enough. They don't need overnight. They usually need you to get away for a second so they can think with you not there. So again, I'm not looking to solve the questions when I'm on the phone with them. I'm more just looking to see what questions are going to pop up so I can practice and be prepared. One other thing that is common is people will say, sign something? What do you mean sign something? Let me ask y'all a question real quick. What other professions do you work with that have you sign things before they work with you?
Lawyer.
A lawyer. Who else?
Doctor first appointment.
A doctor? A mechanic?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All the professionals.
Other professionals. And that goes to mindset is, do we see ourselves as professional? Do we see ourselves as professional? And what I'll say to you is usually if I run into people who are hesitant about asking for the signature, it usually goes back to, I'm not valuing myself and I'm not seeing what I have to offer. So if you recognize that that mindset is within you, I want you to ask yourself, what do I need to do to get to where I really believe in what I'm offering? And maybe it's educating yourself a bit more. You're going to have to answer that for yourself. But I know for me, when I was new in real estate, I did not have confidence seeking signatures because I didn't feel like I knew enough. And when I realized that, I set out to start educating myself. And I started asking myself, where do I feel the least knowledgeable? And where can I learn that thing so that I feel better about what I have to offer to people? So if you are in that space where you feel not overly confident asking for the signature, just ask yourself, what do I need to do to get confident? Okay. I'll give you one tip. Part of how you'll get confident is just start doing it. Just start asking. Martin says in South Africa, it's a legal requirement. Yeah. The team that I joined presented it to me as if it was a requirement, even though it's not technically a requirement. They just talked about it like, oh yeah, we don't work with people unless they sign with us. And I think that was such a gift to me because my mindset from the beginning was, well, we only work with people who sign with us. So that's what I started thinking, and that helped me with my mindset. So let me put this back up on screen, and I'll just go through it from the top as if I'm talking to someone on the phone. And then we'll move on to the next slide. I see some questions. We'll get those at the end just because we don't have a lot of time today. So I will come back for questions. All right, so I'm talking on the phone. I've qualified someone, determined that this is someone that is ready to meet with somebody. So I might say, all right, Ernie, your next step is to meet with me, and we're going to do 3 things. Number 1, we'll go back over your motivation and price. Number 2, we'll interview each other, make sure it's a good fit. And then number 3, if everything looks good, we'll sign paperwork to activate the next step. Any questions? Okay, great. Let's pick a time. And again, if he has questions, I'll simply write those down and I'll say, that's a great question. We'll talk about that when we get together. And when we say things like, we will talk about that when we get together, that's actually called an assumptive close. I'm assuming that you're going to meet with me. It's an assumptive close. And by the way, when you do 7 of those on a call, they're more likely to set an appointment with you. So if Ernie is like, well, I have a question. Great question, Ernie. I wrote that down. We'll talk about that when we get together. I actually just gave an assumptive close. See how that works? So that's the magic. We'll talk about that when we get together. If you answer all of their questions on the phone, why would they meet with you? Right? Do y'all remember during COVID when doctors started meeting with us over Zoom, and it was the best thing ever because we didn't have to go to the doctor? I had blood work done because I was really, really tired. And I wanted to know, is it a vitamin? You know, is it why am I so tired? And the doctor actually called me and gave me my results. And it turned out I was just a little low on a vitamin. And then she said, let's set a time for an appointment. And I asked her, I wasn't trying to be smart with her or anything. I just said, do you mind if I ask why we need to set an appointment? Because you just told me what my blood work is. I'm just curious. And she kind of laughed and she said, actually, I guess we don't, because it would be to talk about your blood work, but we just did that. And I saved myself a copay, not on purpose, but it's because she called and told me everything I wanted to know. So that's the correlation here. If you answer all the questions on the phone, that actually reduces the likelihood of them wanting to meet with you. So get in the habit of saying, great question. We'll talk about that when we get together. All right, so that's how you set the appointment. And when you use that verbiage, we find that 90 to 95% of people will hire you. All right, the next thing is, what is the difference between a customer versus a client? And this taps into what I was just saying, that if we answer all the questions on the phone or we provide all the value before they've hired us, there really is no reason to hire you. So for example, let's say I'm working with Elena, and Elena has not yet met with me. She has not yet hired me. What I might want to do for Elena is put her on a general search for her neighborhood that she wants to live in. And I might say, hey, Elena, for right now, I'm going to put you on a search for 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms in the zip code that you want to be in. However, once we meet and agree to work together, I can make that search much more specific. That's when I can put down that you want hardwood floors, an acre with a fence and a pool. So until then, you'll get a general search. Once we meet together, we'll do a much more specific search. So do you see how I'm adding value? I technically could put her on that amazing search right now, but I also know if I do that, that reduces the value of meeting with me and actually hiring me because I'm just giving it away for free, right? And so you want to start thinking through for yourself, and we all may have a different answer, but what do customers get and then what do clients get? And start evaluating that for yourself. For example, let's say I'm talking to Serena and she says, yes, I want to redo my house. I know I want to meet with her before she renovates because they spend money not in the best places sometimes. So I might say, or she might say, do you have a stager or do you have somebody that can help me know what to do to renovate my house? And my answer would be, Serena, absolutely we do. And that's the type of thing that we'll talk about when we get together and agree to work together. If I give Serena the name of my stager right now or the name of my contractor right now, then I'm giving away things for free. And by the way, she hasn't hired me. What if I'm actually providing resources for her and she never hires me? And then one of my buyer clients wants to buy her house. Do you see how I've actually helped someone that could be on the other side of a transaction of one of my buyer clients? So you want to make sure that you only provide specific certain things to people who have actually hired you. Now, we all know from our real estate law classes, there are some things we provide to everyone, right? Because it's the law. And make sure you know what that is where you live. But also at the same time, there are certain accommodations, there's certain things that only clients get. So what I recommend that you do is after this webinar, take a minute and make a list of what do clients get and what do customers get. And one recommendation I have is a general search for customers and a really specific, pristine search for those clients. And that way it's a valued meeting with you. Your vendor list. I'm not going to give out my vendors, you know, my, by that I mean like my contractors, my painters, you know, my stager, my photographer. I'm not going to provide that to a customer. I'll provide that to a client, okay? So with that in mind, a couple of phrases that would be good to start using would be once we agree to work together. So if I'm talking to Carol and she's asking me a lot of questions, I might say, yeah, absolutely. Once we meet and agree to meet or to work together, I'll provide all of that for you. And in my experience doing this, the most common response is, okay, yeah, sounds good. Okay. Another one that you could use is if they're asking you questions, you could say, that's exactly why we're going to get together. Let me write that question down. So it's not on the screen, but you could also say, let me write that question down. And then again, if they're asking you for something that you think is more client level, you could say, absolutely, that's something that we provide for our clients. And I can provide that for you once we agree to work together. Okay. Using these methods, and I don't say this to be a brag in any way, so please know that that's not my heart. I just know it also helps to know what's the track record of using this so that it can build confidence. And using these methods, I sold 85 homes my first year in real estate, never having been in real estate. So 85 homes my first year in real estate. So 90 to 95% of people hired us, 85 homes my first year in a town where I didn't really know anybody. And it's just the methods. There's nothing special about Anna Krueger. It's just the methods. It's just the systems. It's just the dialogues. And that's how that was able to happen. So I feel very confident that if I can do that, you definitely can do that because I would not call myself a natural salesperson. And even then I was able to see those kind of results simply using these methods. So who here believes that you could earn more clients just off of this 30-minute webinar here? We've had about 25 minutes of this. Okay, awesome. So I do want to share with you where you can get more training like this. The good news is we actually have a class starting tomorrow that is an 18-week series. And each week you get things just like this. In fact, several of you I see here have been in that class, so you can attest to it. But what we do is we give you dialogues, we give you tracking systems, we give you buyer and seller sheets that tell you exactly what to say and what questions to ask. And really the class is designed to make you a very skilled, very proficient lead generator, lead converter. So there's some information about that class here on the screen. And let me get everything up there for you. And this class is designed for buyer agents, listing agents, and inside sales agents. I actually had someone take this class from my church who's a photographer. And I said, it will definitely help you. I just teach it for real estate agents, but you can apply it to any business. And she disappeared about halfway through the class. And I saw her at church and I was like, hey, I haven't seen you. Are you okay? I just haven't seen you in class. And she said, Anna, my business has grown so much that I'm now out with clients in the afternoon and I landed my biggest client I've ever had. And I'm watching the recordings because I'm too busy now to be there live. And I thought that was awesome. So the class is for any sales role, even outside of real estate, although it is geared for buyer, listing, and inside sales agents. And you can see on the left-hand side, everything that we teach. And actually, that's not everything, but I pulled out a pretty big list for you. So 18 sessions, and we go from everything from how do you open a call so they do not hang up on you? What do you do in a non-obnoxious way if they say, just call me later, I'm busy? How do you actually keep them on the phone and be very professional about it, not obnoxious about it? So how do you engage them even when they're trying to get off the phone? Also, how do you set appointments that show up? How do you overcome objections? How do you get into their motivation? Guys, here's the fact, and you know this already, but in today's market, especially if we do not know their personal motivation, it can be very hard to keep them engaged because people are nervous right now. Have you run into that? And if you know what their personal motivation is, that is the biggest indicator of whether or not they'll actually move forward with you. So we've got to be really good at digging into motivation. So we teach that as well. So the class begins tomorrow. And I just talked with MAPS, who is my partner in running this program. And I asked about a discount code for people in this webinar. So if you look at the chat box, I just put it into the chat box, Web 15. And Rodrigo, if you could put the link to the class in there, Web 15, and that'll give you 15% off each month, okay? However, that does expire at midnight. It expires at midnight tonight. So Web 15, and it is expiring tonight at midnight. And lady, just email fast track, Rodrigo, if you could put that in there as well. Email fasttrack@kw.com. But the website is megaleadconversion.com. And right here, you can see all the detail, who it's for, frequently asked questions. And then when you click on sign up, excuse me, you'll see all of the class dates in there as well. A common question we get is it recorded? Somebody emailed me already today saying, I've signed up, but I'm going to miss the first class because I have a meeting. We do record every single session, and it's available 24 hours after the live class. So we have a lot of students who I've never seen live in class, and they watch the recordings because of their schedule, and that's completely fine. So we meet 3 weeks a month, and that totals 6 months, 18 sessions total. It is $199 a month. And again, if you use code WEB15 by midnight tonight, that's the cutoff, we'll give you 15% off each month, okay? I just had a student who's halfway through a session I'm currently running, and she said she's already setting 2 extra appointments a month. Well, we did the math. And if she only worked 46 weeks a year, we're being very conservative. If she only works 46 weeks a year and she doesn't increase anymore, she's only halfway through the program, those 2 extra appointments a week will earn her 41 extra closings a year. 41. So the question I would have for you is, are you someone who will show up, engage? You probably are. You're here today for a free webinar. So you probably are that person. If you are someone who will show up and engage in the classes, I have no doubt that you'll see return on that investment. So $199 a month. Use the code WEB15 by midnight tonight, and we'll give you a discount. I see a really good question of what time are the live classes? Great question. They're going to be 2 to 3 o'clock Eastern time on Wednesdays. 2 to 3 o'clock Eastern time on Wednesdays. Which, by the way, when you go to sign up, when you click sign up, it has the time right here. That's in Central. It has all the detail. What are the dates? All of the details. And then right here, coupon code, that's where you'll enter WEB15. Also, you do not need to be with Keller Williams. Just click no. And then down here, when it asks you for your Keller Williams ID, just put no. Okay, so you do not have to be Keller Williams to take that class. All right. Carol says, can you pay in full? Is there a price discount? Rodrigo could probably answer that, but I don't think so.
No, it is the same price, but that 15% is reoccurring.
Okay, perfect. All right, and then let me just show you the client portal real quick since we had questions about recordings, and then I'll open it up for questions about today's content. So here's a class I'm teaching right now. It's already in process. And you'll see right here, here's each week that I've taught already. And if we were to click on a week, let's say you missed that week, here's the recording right here. And you can watch the recording. There's all the materials. So in essence, if you could never join us live, that's completely fine. I'd love to meet you and get to know you. That's why I know some of you on screen today, as I've seen you in class, like Laura, Elena, Patricia. But again, if you're not able to join us live, that is okay. Awesome. You guys, thank you for the kind words. Serena, thank you for that in the chat box. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
Do you also teach a class specific to converting sellers?
I do not teach a class specific to converting sellers, although this class applies to sellers. There's another class called Mega Listing Agent you might be thinking of. Yeah.
But you don't teach it. You don't teach that one.
No, I don't teach that one. Nope.
That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a class like that taught by you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I love teaching, so I really appreciate that. Let me see other questions here in the chat box. You guys are awesome in the chat box. Thank you. A lot of kind comments there. Okay. What questions do we have either about class or about today's content? Carol, I see you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
I know she just asked, hi, how are you? And I think I've been in a class you taught, but maybe not this one. So, but this class does apply to sellers as well as buyer. I do work with a lot of sellers.
Yes, absolutely.
I think the whole thing is converting a client period to get them to sign. That's information that you'll be given, right?
Yes. So what
Thank
we're
you.
teaching is the psychology of how to talk to leads, really humans. So to be honest with you, I've taught this class even outside of this industry. I've taught it to radio broadcasters. I've taught it to people that sell like college enrollment advisors. It's really the psychology of how to talk to people and convert them into leads. And it doesn't matter if they're a commercial lead, a residential lead, a buyer, a seller, this class will help. Really, the main difference would be what objections you might get from people. But we cover objections in 2 sessions. We'll spend 2 hours total on objections, and it applies to both buyers and sellers. So Carol, I was an inside sales agent. I worked with both buyers and sellers, and I used the same techniques for both. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Cecilia said, will recordings always be available to go back to? Great question. They're available for 60 days after the very last class. So it's a 6-month program. You'll have 8 months total to listen to the recordings, which should be plenty. It's really 18 hours total spread out over 6 months. And part of why we meet 3 weeks a month is to give you a week if you're out or if you want to rewatch something that was really powerful. There's time built in for that to keep it from being overwhelming. Yeah. Patricia, I see you. It looks like you have your hand raised.
Yes. So my question was, first of all, your class that I took previously, amazing. I loved it. Thinking about taking it again. So I've been using everything you've doing. I'm still trying to get over the nerves of number one, like asking them as if it's no big deal, the script that we practiced just now, because I think if I am coming to it as if it's a big deal, and they might see that and they might also think it's a big deal, but I don't want them to think that. So any tips or tricks to help me not feel like it's a big deal? I guess, I don't know.
That's a really good question. And Patricia, I would say, I started to go here and then I didn't complete the thought because I saw our time. But remember I said, what are some other professions that we sign agreements to work with them? And we named off doctors and lawyers and the dentist and all that. I think the biggest thing is, remember, you are a professional and it's not weird in other industries to sign something. So if someone pushes back, it's easy to say, oh yeah, it's just like if you hire a roofer to re-roof your house, or if you hire a lawn guy, there's usually an agreement to work together. It's simply an agreement saying we're working together. And I think, Patricia, the other biggest thing is the 3 steps I gave at the beginning of when we meet, we'll do 3 things. Practicing that with the downswing. So when you say it like, number 3, if everything looks good, we will sign paperwork to activate the next step. Any questions? That confidence in the way you say it will go a long way in removing objections. So when I've shadowed people who are struggling to get the signature and they say, but I'm saying the right thing, I'm following the steps. When I listen to them, they're going up kind of like this and they don't sound certain. So there's a lot to be said, Patricia, in your voice going down. Saying it like this will produce confidence and that will help. But I really think, Patricia, a lot of it is just asking for it. As someone who never thought it was weird, because my rainmaker just, it was like, I didn't know that people worked with people without getting a signature. And so that mindset early on of we only work with people who hire us and here's the process, adopting that mindset will go a long way. But part of it is just doing it.
Thank you. You're the best, by the way. Anybody is, if they're on the fence about taking her class, they need to do it. It's amazing.
Thank you, Patricia. Guys, I'm going to be vulnerable with you for just a moment. And then Serena, I'll come to you. But thank you for that and all the kind words in the chat box. I will tell you that I told my coach recently, I said, I love teaching. It's my favorite thing. The challenge I have is I'm an extrovert and I work from home and I miss the feedback. Like I miss the people that come up and talk to you after class because we close the Zoom and then I never know what happens. So I really appreciate the feedback and all the kind words. Yeah. Shonda, I see your question in the chat box. Let me get Serena and then I'll answer your question, Shonda. All right, Serena, go ahead.
Yeah, and Anna, I will text you after class so you don't feel left alone, okay?
Okay, thank you.
So my question was regarding getting the documents signed at the end of the appointment. I'm running in a lot of situations, like my last three listing appointments have been with siblings helping their elderly parents sign. And what they ask me is to go and see the house because it's not so much I'm hiring a realtor now. I want you to come and see the house and give us advice. How do you handle that?
Yeah, so it depends how and where you do your appointments. So Serena, I'm used to doing appointments at the office without seeing their house. And so what I would say in that situation is absolutely, I will definitely come to your house and give you advice once we agree to meet to work together. So step one is to meet at the office and talk through what the process looks like, to interview each other and really go through those 3 steps. And then once we agree to work together, I'll absolutely come to your house and give you advice.
But they want to know the price. So how do you decide the price without seeing the house?
Oh man, that's like a whole nother webinar. So Serena, you could do it it depends how you do your appointments. We did not go to the house before the appointments, but that's a whole listing system that's like too much honestly to get into right now because of time. But you could also say, I'll come and meet at your house, but don't share anything with them until, well, you got to share price before they hire you, right? But I would hold back some value until they actually hire you. I'm not trying to not answer your question. It's just so big of an answer that it's not really the topic of today and we're low on time. Yeah. But just getting into that mindset of absolutely, that's what we'll talk about when we meet, or absolutely, I'll provide that for you once we agree to work together. And when you say it like it's normal, the sky is blue. My name is Anna. I'm wearing a blue shirt. I have a brick wall behind me. I'll provide that for you once you agree to work with me. I'll provide that for you once we meet together. It's Tuesday. You know, you just get in that habit of saying it like that.
So what, you don't supply a CMA? I mean, what about just doing a CMA? I mean, that's what they were saying with the meeting, that a CMA on the property and they give them an idea before you see it.
Nope. I mean, I will never send a CMA over email.
No,
That's
I know.
something. Yeah, I'll provide that before they hire me because they need to know if they're happy with the price and I want them to know before they hire me. But that's in the listing appointment. I don't share, like if somebody asks me that on the phone before we meet, then I'll say that's something we'll talk about when we get together. I need to do some research first. And if I gave you an answer now, it would be, you know, not as accurate. I'm going to do research and provide that for you in person. And that's the answer there. All right, let me answer the question in the chat box. Shonda said, are most of your appointments in person or Zoom? So in person is my preference. It depends, you know, if they're out of town buyer, then I'll do that on Zoom. But I strongly prefer in person. I think you can do them on Zoom because we've had 2020 behind us now. That didn't used to be something that was so easy. But now people are more used to Zoom meetings. But I think in person is preferred on my end. And that is a bit of a preference. Okay, we're really over time, but I'll take another question or two. So any other questions on the program or today's content? Maria, go ahead.
What about I get like leads from Facebook and I get like phone numbers, but then I don't get them to answer the phone. Do you have like text conversion type scripts?
I do. Yeah, we teach that in the program. And again, there's a whole system around getting that. There's a 90% pickup or callback ratio with the system I give you. And that's a whole hour session in the class. But yes, we do talk about that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Did you know that 90% of people will pick up or call you back when you use the right system? It's really helpful.
Yeah.
Yep. I've had teams that think like, oh, this lead source is terrible. And then we'll work on their system, same exact lead source. And a couple months later, they're like, I love this lead source. And it's just because they weren't approaching them the right way to get contact. So if I'm not making contact, I'm going to think it's a terrible lead source, right? But when you have the right system and you make contact, you can see actually there's a lot of value here. Yeah. Cool. I don't see any other questions. Who will I see on Wednesday? Some of you I know are already signed up. Some of you are in the class I'm already running. Lady, I'll see you on Wednesday. Yay, Laura. Awesome. Okay, good. Make sure you use that code WEB15 by midnight. Sign
Anna,
up by midnight.
what's the website to get more information on the classes, the schedule and stuff? I got to see if I can make it.
Yeah, it's megaleadconversion.com. Megaleadconversion.com. I just put it in the chat box. And the code is WEB for web 15. And when you go to the website, just a reminder, Ernie, real quick, because you talked about seeing if you could make it. We do record everything again. So like one of the students in my class right now emails me questions because she's not on there live. And she watches it every Friday morning on her own schedule because she can never join us live. So I like it when you're live because we get to chat. But yeah, it's okay. It's like if you can't, that doesn't mean that you can't participate. So when you click on sign up, that's where you'll see the schedule.
Okay.
But again, they are recorded. And here's what that looks like. So what it'll look like is you'll have a client portal just like this one. And you'll see Mega Lead Conversion. And when you click on it, at the top, it has like all the housekeeping items up here. And then it'll have each week what I taught with the subject. And also that lets you go back. Sometimes people will forget like, oh yeah, what was that call opener? You can come back and watch it or just watch it through recordings.
And do you guys supply notes or anything like that? Like, or outlines or anything?
Yeah, it's right here. So each session, here's a workbook.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So each week you'll log in. And so here's week 1, you'll log in. And on the right-hand side, here's all the downloads for that session.
Okay.
And we put that up. The first class, it shows up the day of. And then the other ones are usually there a week ahead of time. So you'll see those. Lady, thank you for answering the question. So Lydia, the discount code, it's 15% off each month. 15% off each month. So instead of it being $199, what would that be? I think it's like 170-ish, something like that. Don't quote me, do some math. Let me do it real quick. I don't do math in my head. I use calculators.
169.15.
There you go. Yeah, it's $29.85 off per month. Okay. But I just had a student tell me he's already seen 10 times return and he's about halfway through the program as well. He's a new agent. And he said he's already seen that return because at the end of the day, the whole program is just under $1,200. And that's even with no discount code. And the average commission in the US right now, if you just get one closing from the class, that covers about 8 times ROI right there, depending on where you live and your price point. Mm-hmm. And honestly, if you're not getting more than one closing out of this class, I either need to be fired or you need to show up and take notes. Like, I mean, it works. I'm telling you, the systems work as long as you show up and you use the content. And that's where you have to ask yourself, am I someone that will show up to class, take notes, and practice? But if you will see results. Martin is in South Africa going to bed. Have a good night. They're like 9 hours ahead of us, something like that. I love your dedication, Martin. Lydia, awesome. I will see you on Wednesday.
In progress. Majority of practicing. If something goes wrong with the deal, there's a lot that it does cover.
Tammy, are you talking? I don't think she's talking to us. I think she's working a deal. Go, Tammy. All right. Any other questions about the class or today's content? Okay. Well, I'm excited to see you guys tomorrow. We will send a copy of today's webinar. Watch your email. I have a new email address, by the way, so please make sure I'm in your address book so I don't go to spam. My new email is anna@sparkingprogress.com. And I only mention that because a lot of you here, I know you, and you're not used to that email yet. So just make sure I don't go to spam. So anna@sparkingprogress.com is my email address. And within about 48 hours, you'll get a link to today's recording in your email, so you can rewatch it if you would like. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions. Cecilia, yay. I'll see you tomorrow. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, listen, thank you for hanging out with me today, especially if you're still here, because we're 50 minutes into this 30-minute webinar. So thank you for hanging out with me. I will see you tomorrow. It looks like a lot of you. And again, make sure you use Web15 for 15% off, but make sure you do that by midnight because it will expire at midnight tonight. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. Go find some clients. Lydia from Cuba. That's exciting. I love it. I love the international presence we have on this call. That's incredible. All right, guys, have a great day, and I will see you, a lot of you, tomorrow. Bye, everyone.